Hello, everyone. This is Travis J. Vernon, and welcome to today's podcast. Well, to start out with, I can't really have any excuses. These last 2 years, I haven't posted much. I've gotten a fair amount of grief from people that I know. They've been disappointed that I haven't kept up with my podcast. So perhaps this is a good time to come clean and let people know that while I've never been diagnosed, I'm very ADHD. I tend to jump foot first into any new activity that I find interesting. That's why I have so many hobbies. That's why I do so many things. And I get to a point where I start to get a little bit bored with something. Whether it's a job, a hobby, an activity, an adventure, I find an immense amount of pleasure in planning an adventure. And sometimes I'll get on it and think, this is fun. But I'll even start planning the next adventure while I'm on the adventure that I'm on. I just finished up an adventure with my wife for our anniversary. We went down to southern Utah. We had 3 or 4 days planned of fishing, hiking, exploring, and rock hounding. Turned into 2, and both of us decided that we should just come home and work on our new place. So that's a big part of not posting a podcast for the last couple years. I didn't have a studio set up at all because my parents had decided that they wanted to move to Wyoming, and we helped them quite a bit in finding pieces of property to look at where they could build. On one of the occasions, my wife gave me a call while I was at work and said, "Hey, there are some pretty neat pieces of property that we just looked at. You should come take a look." One thing led to another, and the only way for us to financially be able to build a home was to sell both the homes we had. So Nancy had her home in Evanston, Wyoming, and I had a home which was really just a double-wide trailer on one of the most amazing sections of the Weber River in Utah. We ended up selling both of those properties, bought 5 acres in Wyoming, and we built our home. It was exciting and aggravating, and I don't know if I'd ever want to do it again, but I probably would do it again. I guess it just once it gets far enough away that the pain isn't as obvious. It was difficult though, because we started the whole process in 2022. It was just post-COVID. There were so many problems with the supply chains that we would pick something out and it would either be double the price by the time we got it, or they would run out of whatever it was and we'd have to switch. So we became very fluid in changing what we wanted. We ended up building a great home on a fun piece of property. One of the saddest parts of selling Nancy's home was the greenhouse that we had spent so much time building and that we'd received so much joy from. So we were able to get into this home in late July of 23. Which is a tough time for me anyway, because I'm pretty much on the river come July. So I spent most of July guiding. August was all fish guiding. September and October was big game guiding, elk, antelope, and mule deer. So we tried our best to get a little bit of a garden going. We got some corn planted, which turned into chicken fodder because it just was about 30 days too late. It's tough where we live. We're at 7,000 feet in elevation. I mean, today's May 6th while I'm recording this, and it's snowing right now. But we started our tomato plants about a month ago in the basement. Keep waiting for the cops to knock on the door, wondering why there's so many grow lights. Our lower level turns into a pink UV abyss in the evening and early mornings. But that's the only way we can get stuff to grow. We were able to get a bunch of raised beds built this year, and so hopefully we'll be able to get the greenhouse built on top of those. Just with the way everything's working out time-wise and going into another guide season where I'm only a month away, I'm just not going to have time to build a greenhouse on my days off between now and then, especially because next week I leave for the Black Hills because I'm going to go chase turkeys for a few days. It's technically a shoulder season for me. There used to be longer shoulder seasons in the industries that I work in. Mountain biking, skiing, fly fishing, big game hunting. You'd get a little bit of a shoulder season in the month of November and a little bit of a shoulder season in the month of May. May, especially in this part of the world, you get a little bit of mud season, but it can turn into turkey hunting. So end of April, first part of May, I usually try and skip out to have a vacation or two. I try and do something with Nancy in November, and then we try and do something in January just to get out of the snow. But I do have a studio set up now, so I can continue my podcast. I've always done this podcast as something that's fun for me. It's an outlet, tell my stories. I hope you enjoy the stories. I really don't get much feedback. So nobody really sends emails, what they like, what they don't like. So I just have to read into the numbers on the podcast, which makes me very interested in the last podcast I did, episode 39, where I talked about the previous jobs I'd had, the previous managers I'd had. That has more downloads, hands down, than any of my other podcasts, which makes me wonder if you guys are more interested in just life lessons and me teaching you the things I've learned over my life and trying to speed stuff up for you. If that's the case, throw me an email, jump on my socials, send me a message. Let me know what you'd like to hear about. I am more than happy to talk to you about those sorts of things. I love telling stories. I have a whole bunch of stories from the last 2 years. So I'll jump in with a bunch of that. I apologize for putting the podcast on the back burner, but life just gets crazy sometimes. I honestly can't believe it's been 2 years since I posted a podcast. It's going to end up being 26, 27 months since the last podcast I posted, which is super bizarre. In that time period, I now have 4 step-grandchildren. Never had kids of my own. Just wasn't in the cards. But I've been blessed with amazing stepkids in 2 different marriages. I still keep in touch with all of them. They're super good kids, and all but one has a child. So I have 4 step-grandchildren, one who lives close by. Unfortunately, he tends to get a little bit more spoiled than the others because I don't get to see the others as much. And I'm kind of a sucker for being like my grandparents and keeping presents at the house so I can just go find fun things to give them and live a little bit vicariously. It's just a good time. That'll be some stories that I can tell. Just him growing up over the last little bit and how much fun we have being grandparents here at the new place. So some of the stuff I've been working on at this new place, like I said, the garden's a little problematic. The land that we have had a small gravel pit on it, so I do have some pea gravel, which is really nice because I can filter that out, use that for walkways. I need to build more fences. We have mule deer, elk, antelope that have all been on the property. Jackrabbits and cottontails are a constant. Lots of small animals. Bunch of coyotes will be yipping and howling in the mornings around. It's just a wonderful place to live and just spend time watching sunrises, sunsets, and looking at the mountains. So we're really happy to be up here. One of the first things we had to do was we needed to get a chicken coop built because we needed to move the chickens from our old home to the new home. Well, the new home wasn't even built yet. They had the foundation down and they had run the electrical. So we ended up running about 200 feet of extension cords. And yes, I know that's not something you should do, to the chicken coop to run the heaters to make sure that we had a heater for the roost and a heater for the water so that we could keep the water from freezing. We started with an 8x8 shed and then we extended that. So now it's 16 by 16. The 8x8 is still the enclosed area where we keep the heater for the roost during the wintertime, which apparently is still the first part of May, and the water heaters. And Nancy currently has 18 chickens, 2 roosters, and 16 hens. 10 of them are young. We did have a visit from a weasel, or an ermine, as some of you may prefer to call them, in the wintertime who devastated Nancy's chickens. Killed every one of the nice ones, which, there's a metaphor in there somewhere. But all the nice chickens got killed. I had filled her in that was going to be one of those things that would happen when you live in an environment like we do. There are going to be tragedies with animals. It's just a part of life. It was a difficult lesson when I was a kid, raising little birds from eggs with the brooder on the end of my bed. I'd wake up in the morning and take my chicks outside, and I was their mom. And Nancy had raised some of these birds from eggs, and the same thing. She was very, very attached to them. And it's a hard thing to walk into the coop to the carnage that a weasel or a mink will leave. She had a bit of a rough go with that, but we have a bunch of new hens that are super cool. And one mystery chicken that she grabbed because it was the same color as the others. And he has turned out to be a rooster. He's a Cochin, so he's gigantic and he's beautiful. So I think he's already found a way into Nancy's heart. And we're probably going to have 2 roosters now. So I might have to build another chicken coop. But I mean, the chicken coop, a 16 by 16 chicken coop, it's hands down the nicest coop I've ever built. I don't want to have to build another one though. I need to focus on the greenhouse and getting a little racetrack put out so that we can start taking Kane on the go-kart. That'd be fun. He's very into cars and trucks. That chicken coop I built intending to avoid predation inside the coop. I have 18 inches of wire buried around the base, covered in gravel, so that anytime an animal tries to dig under, you can see it, plus they run into wire. And it's not just chicken wire. I used galvanized wire, but I left a little bit of a gap on the door that was just enough for a weasel to squeeze through. I fixed that, but the damage had already been done. I think it'd be fun to have a couple of Highland cows. 5 acres isn't enough for that. We'd have to get miniatures. And then what's the point? Having a few goats would probably be fun. Or raising some turkeys or some other game birds. But in the state of Wyoming, that gets super complicated with the permitting and everything else that you need. So now I have an unfinished basement that I get to finish. And lots of work on the exterior of the house. Primarily all the landscaping. We finally gave in this year and had to buy a tractor. 2 years ago, the snow was so bad in the west that I wasn't able to stay ahead of it. I ended up having to spend way too much money having people come in with big equipment to move the snow when the drifts got so high that I couldn't even throw them with the snowblower anymore. So we ended up with our own tractor, which is fun. I enjoy it. Already started on the playground for all the grandkids, lining out where we're going to have other aspects of the garden. I try to zero-scape as much as I possibly can. It makes it complicated in sagebrush country when your wife has an allergy to sagebrush. But me being a big game person, sagebrush is the winter forage for most big game animals, so I like having sagebrush around. So we've made a few compromises on the patches that stay and the patches that don't. Well, everyone, that's basically my catch-up podcast. I'll tell a bunch of the stories over the last couple years. There's some reasons in there, no excuses. But I would love to have some feedback from you guys. So throw me some feedback, let me know what other things you'd like to learn. And get out there and live your stories.